summer solstice.
Okay.
So we are enjoying a pretty dry weather, but also just a bit chilly. But yeah, it's a great day. It's a very blessed day today.
Oh, well, fantastic. First, before we start the business of the day, I want to say a very big thank you for granting me this audience. It wasn't easy to convince you to talk about what is going on in South Africa. Thank you very much, Ms. Lorato, for granting us the audience here on Overt Radio.
Absolutely. I know that it was a bit of a trial and error for me as well. It was a very difficult decision to be part and parcel of this interview, but I just thought, we need to talk about these socio-economic issues. Widespread throughout Africa and the world, so I had to be that context, that point of contact, and talk about the realities on the ground.
Now, before we start, you just tell us about yourself, what you do, and what is all about you. Just tell us briefly about yourself.
All right, so my name is Lorato Pete, and to those who know me, I am known as Miss Lira. So basically, I am a co-owner, co-founder of Smart Secure SA alongside my business partner. His name is Augustine Bopili. He serves as our Chief Operating Officer. So basically, what we do is we have a security company here in South Africa. We look at CCTV surveillance, access control, biometric and facial recognition systems. We do gate automation, network infrastructure, cybersecurity. We also supply installation and maintenance of computer hardware and software. However, what I wanted to stress that in addition to what we provide in the range of the ICT services, which are remotely to clients both within South Africa and internationally, we have included, other things like web design and development, the Microsoft 360 solutions. We've got business email setup and migration. So it really doesn't matter where in the world you are located. We can establish a professional online presence to improve collaboration and modernize your IT environment without you being here, basically. So we are an international portfolio and a brand as well. And thank you so much once again, Ken, for inviting me to Overt Radio.
All right, Lagos. Yes, this is Overt Radio. We are broadcasting to you live from the city of Lagos. You can go to our YouTube. We are streaming live on YouTube, Overt Radio Live, Overt Radio Live, OVERT Radio Live. We are also on Instagram. You can watch part of this interview later on our various social media platforms, on Instagram, Overt News, on X, Overt Radio Live, and also on TikTok, overt.radio.lagos. We are broadcasting to you live from the city of Lagos. Lagos is a center of excellence. All right, Lorato, let's start the business of the day. Now, there have been a lot of narratives concerning xenophobia in South Africa, and I'm a big fan of South African movie. I just finished watching The Polygamist, earlier on, and this is a fantastic, series that I will urge all our listeners to go have a look at that. Now, that is that. Now, Lorato, I'm sure that you are aware of what is going on in South Africa. Now, how did this agitation, how did it start? Where did it come out from?
Ken, we have to look at the context. So there is a common misconception, and that is that anti-immigrant agitation in South Africa began suddenly. And this, I believe, for the whole world would have been the 30th of June 2026. But in reality, it has a deep structural roots that predated the end of apartheid and erupted as an economic pressure which mounted in the democratic era. So we need to look at certain things. The first thing would be the institutional legacy. So during the apartheid era, the foreign African laborers were brought in under very strict, highly controlled migrant labor systems, and these were primarily for the mining as well as the agricultural institutions. So the political system intentionally isolated South Africans from the rest of the continent, which fostered an insular identity.
Wow.
That's the first thing.
Wow.
Secondly, we need to look at the fact that post-1994, there are things that are called expectations versus economic reality. When democracy arrived in 1994, the citizens of South Africa, they anticipated immediate socio-economic transformation.
All right.
Over 3 decades later, 30 years later, persistent structural issues such as chronic unemployment. Can you believe it, Ken, that the official unemployment rate in South Africa for the first quarter of 2026 is 32.7%? Not even looking at the youth unemployment, which is the ages between 15 and 24, which is sitting above 60%. So those are just some of the things, so chronic unemployment, house shortages, failing municipal services have created widespread frustration. And then also we have to look at the fact that there will always be someone who is going to be the scapegoat. So we look at the scapegoat mechanism. So when the public systems have failed us so dismally, human psychology will often seek a visible and a vulnerable target. And unfortunately, it is so unfortunate that that target had to be our own brothers and sisters who are external to South Africa. So we look at the foreign shop owners, the laborers, the migrants, become very convenient proxies for broader institutional failures. So that is just some of the things that we need to look at. And lastly, just to give you a little bit more context, you have to look at the timeline. This began in 1994, 1995. There was actually an early anti-immigrant march in Alexandra Township, and that operation was called Buyele Kaya. Buyele Kaya means go back home. That happened in 1995, which is literally 21 years ago. Then in 2008, there was nationwide riots that made global headlines, resulting in over 60 people who had died. And then from 2019 till present, that's where the pressure cooker just went, it just exploded. Because there was an emergence of organized political and community movements like Operation Dudula. I'm sure maybe you've heard about it. That actively campaigns on anti-immigration platforms. So xenophobia, my friend, isn't an isolated event. It's an economic pressure cooker that was blowing its lid. When millions of people face youth unemployment and poor service delivery, people will naturally look for a face to blame. And foreign nationals happen to be the easiest target.
Fantastic. I like the way you started it chronologically, giving us a historical perspective about how this thing started. Now you did mention that it started in 1995. Now, can we blame past South African leaders like the likes of the great late Nelson Mandela or Thabo Mbeki or Jacob Zuma? Can we say that these leaders, they have one or two faults regarding how this unemployment in South Africa, shortages of house and also chronic unemployment? Can we say that these past leaders of South Africa, they have a part to blame in this, how this thing started?
Ken, this is a very, very complex situation.
I understand.
We have to look at the history of South Africa, and I think my opening statement was that South African personnel were literally isolated from the rest of Africa, and I'm talking about the greater majority that actually lived in South Africa. I'm not talking about the freedom fighters who were exposed to other cultures, who were exposed to other people, who were exposed to differences. So I cannot necessarily say that we blame the former leaders. After being isolated, after being strained, stressed, depressed, put under severe house arrest, and I'm sure most of Africa and the world know about the atrocities that were happening inbound in here. And remember that in that period during the apartheid era, Africans were not exposed to what was happening externally, so they were literally cut off from the rest of the world. So when there was black empowerment post 1994, I think the leaders, what they wanted to do is give the South African nation a sense of relief, a sense of freedom. You know, they do not know what freedom is because they've literally lived under oppression for decades. So they wanted to institutionalize certain things. They wanted to implement certain features within the economy to try and assist the broader national, and that's predominantly, 80% or 90% is black people, and that's the impoverished people. So we are dealing with an impoverished mind. We are dealing with people who have suffered. We are dealing with people who, to date, have past hurts. So it's a very, very complex thing to say that we are going to lay the blame on certain leadership. I think they tried their best to try and help the populace, but over time, different narratives started emerging, and because of this mass suffering, people started looking at who can we blame.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Lerato Pete, for that explanation, for that response. Now, before we pause a while, let me ask this question. Personally speaking, let me ask this question: do South Africans love other African nationals? Because we've been hearing, because there's this narrative that South Africans don't like Nigerians, South Africans don't like people who are from African countries living in their country. Let me hear it from you. Do South Africans, do they love their African brothers and sisters?
Oh my goodness, I am very pro-Africa. I've traveled throughout Africa and the world as well. So, I cannot be categorized as one of those people who is not a lover of God's people, basically. But this is a high-stakes, sensitive question. Okay, it's very important to deconstruct that media-driven stereotypes while acknowledging real interpersonal and national tensions. So let's look at the first thing. We need to avoid generalizing an entire nation. So the vast majority of South Africans do not actively hate Nigerians or any other specific group per se. However, there is a distinct, highly publicized tension that gets amplified by social media and sensationalized by reporting. So we've got stereotyping and media amplification where Nigerians in South Africa are often subject to harsh generalization or stereotyping, frequently associated in popular narratives with organized crime, drug syndicates or scams, and conversely, the successful Nigerian entrepreneurs, the doctors, the corporate professionals, the academics are often overlooked in these narratives. We also have to look at the fact there's cultural and economic friction. So Nigerian culture tends to be very bold, right? Highly visible and entrepreneurial, which can sometimes be misconstrued or met with resentment in localized settings, as well as looking at the fact that Nigerian nationals have established strong footholds in small business sectors such as transport, entertainment, and they are really generating local jealousy or claims of unfair competition. And then we look at the sibling rivalry, right? So Nigeria and South Africa are the two economic powerhouses of sub-Saharan Africa. This dynamic trickles down from diplomatic as well as cultural competition. Let's look at, for example, Afrobeat versus Amapiano, for example. To those formal frictions, right? So I don't believe that South Africans hate Nigerians as people. What exists is a toxic cocktail of media-driven stereotyping, the economic competition, the cultural friction. So when a few bad actors are highlighted in the media, unfortunately, an entire community ends up carrying the blame. That's my That's
Yeah.
my take.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Lagos. In case you just joined us, we're having an exclusive interview with Lerato Pete. Lerato Pete is a co-founder of Smart Secure SA, together with Augustine Pobili, Chief Information Officer, Smart Secure SA. Smart, So yes. This is one of the topic that we had to deal with here, because as a media organization, we don't support xenophobia. We love South Africans, and we know that South Africans love Nigerians. All right, so we are broadcasting to you live from the city of Lagos. In case you just joined us, you can find a snippet of this interview later on our various social media platforms: on X, Overt Radio Live; on Instagram, Overt News; on TikTok, overt.radio.lagos. We are currently streaming on YouTube, Overt Radio Live. All right, now, Lerato, let's move into the next question. Now, let me ask you this. In your own understanding, what do you think might have happened that the SA government and the people would want to wake up one morning? Because foreign nationals have been in South Africa for a very long time. So what do you think? Yeah, I know that you have given a part of this question, but is there anything else behind this sudden wake up by South Africans, protesting on the streets that illegal migrants should leave? Is there anything that we should know apart from what you've explained earlier?
Well, I think what I can add is that we need to look at, some of the governance and systematic decay, right? So the core issue is often a collapse in the public trust regarding our border controls, our law enforcement, our local government efficiencies as well. When citizens feel the state cannot enforce its own laws, what happens is that vigilante movements step into the vacuum, and that's exactly what has erupted in South Africa. We've got informal business sectors, and I'm sure you've heard this term over and over again, which is known in the South African term, we call them the local spaza shops. They feel so squeezed. We've got the casual labor markets, and we're looking at markets like domestic work, hospitality, construction, often favor non-nationals because employers can exploit undocumented workers with sub-minimum wages. So that's also one of the things that people are fighting about. And then we look at one of the biggest things that people want to overlook, which is the political opportunism. So politicians across the ideological spectrum have recognized that anti-immigrant rhetoric mobilizes voters very easily, right? Diverting attention away from the policy failures, away from the corruption, as well as slow economic growth. And then there is that fine line between the illegal versus the legal blur. While the anti-immigration campaigns claim to target only undocumented migrants, in practice, this xenophobic hostility has really, has also targeted people who've got the correct credentials. So it's not just about the illegal immigration symptom, the breakdown of public service, the public service delivery, the unmonitored labor practices, the widespread economic desperation are just some of the underlying causes. And I really want to echo this to the rest of Africa and the world, that as South Africans, the majority of South Africans, we have stood up and we have really protested against these unfair practices. We honestly and sincerely love our fellow brothers and sisters worldwide, and we are not in support of what is currently happening here on the ground at home.
Thank you very much, Lerato, for that snappy one. I feel, based on your explanation, I am now feeling for most of the South Africans who at disadvantage, at the moment right now. So this South Africa is not the only, country, suffering from government insensitivity. Other countries across South Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Togo, in other countries, this has always been the problem. Those in power are just too insensitive to they are just too insensitive to the plight of their citizens, of their population. So we hope that by this wake up call, it will put those in government in check. And I think I'm correct. By this wake up call from South Africans, it will put those in government in check to do what is expected of them to do, because like they say, that charity begins at home. You must first of all take care of your people before you start considering other foreign nationals. And every South African has a right to protest. Every South African has the right to protest. And I think that what they've done right now is to put government officials and also the leaders in South Africa and other parts of the country to check. Any last word from you before we call it a day, Lerato?
Yes, I actually want to say that there are millions of South Africans and foreign nationals who coexist very peacefully every day in the workplaces, in our religious organizations, in the universities, in the neighborhoods. There's data that constantly shows that over half the population feels comfortable living and working alongside other foreign nationals. But I have to really express that in our township and informal settlement pressures, there is hostility which is far more pronounced, especially because of that economic depression within the townships. There's competition, there's scarce resources, so there is often a disparity in how different nationals are perceived. As you have seen, that the white or the Western expats rarely encounter hostility, whereas our Black, African, or South Asian migrants bear the brunt of the local anxieties, which I refer to, or the world will refer to as Afrophobia. So just in closing, my dear, I just want to say that, I validate the genuine anxieties of, the unemployed youth of South Africa or the unemployed in South Africa. And I understand their fear. I understand their vulnerabilities. I also really feel for every foreign national that is living in this country. It's not easy for them, you know? And I'm saying this from trying to be as objective as I can, trying to be as empathetic as I can, because it's really a tough time for everyone. But we need to highlight the things that are currently happening, and you said it so correctly. We need to make sure that our governance comes into play. They need to institutionalize and do the right things. They need to make sure that they do not punish people who are here with the correct credentials, trying to actually assist the economy of South Africa. We need to look at that economic integration as well. And we just have to be transparent as Africans. I believe that one day we are going to consolidate, and if we can just have a united Africa, can you see how it would work for Africans if we literally just had one passport, literally? We will be the greatest force on earth. I don't think there's any nation that will be greater than Africa if we just become one-minded, if we become transparent, if we work together, if we love one another. So that's me in closing. And just before, I just wanted to say, which I did not state earlier, if you do want to get in touch with me, I think you can share my number, you can share my email address, you can also share our website. Would you like to do that for us, Ken?
Okay, you can do that, please, first away.
Awesome. So if you'd like to contact us or contact me on WhatsApp, my number is +27 83 576-1976. I'm going to repeat it. Plus 2783-576-1976. You can email me on info@smartsecuresa.co.za, info@smartsecuresa.co.za, or find us on our website, which is www.smartsecuresa.co.za.
All right, thank you very much, Lerato Piet. All right, Lagos, we have been talking with an exclusive interview with Miss Lerato Piet. He's the co-founder of Smart Secure SA. What do they do? CCTV installation, comprehensive electronic security and IT solutions for homes, estates, schools, farms, businesses, and of all sizes. All right, we have been talking about xenophobia. Lerato, thank you very much for talking to us this beautiful Tuesday morning here on Overt Radio here in Lagos. A very big thank you for joining us, and we hope that when I call you again next time, you'll be able to grant us another round of interview in case if something else happened, and we don't pray that something negative happened, but something good that happens in South Africa and Nigeria. Is that a promise?
Absolutely. I would love to come back to Overt Radio.
All right.
And thank you very much to your listeners. Good morning, and I love you, Lagos.
All right. Nigeria, love you too. Thank you very much. Goodbye. All right, Lagos, that has been an exclusive interview with Lerato Piet. We have been talking about xenophobia, how it all started, and if there is a way out. So one of the ways out, according to our interviewer, is that the government need to do what is expected of them to do. The South African citizens and population, they have spoken. What is that thing? Unemployment is one of the things that it is causing this outrage. Housing strategies, lack of economic balance, among the South Africans. So xenophobia is not just something that just started. It is something that started far back in 1995 when the government of the day, as at that time, failed to look into the welfare of South Africans. Okay, all right, that is how far I can go this morning here on the Wake Up Conversation on Overt Radio. Don't go anywhere. 9:15. I will be here for the political update. I will continue my series on the 2026 Electoral Act amended. I will continue my series, giving you all the provisions that are enshrined in the 2026 Electoral Act. Okay. Thank you very much, listeners. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back. Don't remember that part of this interview will be on our various social media platform later in the day or tomorrow, but don't go anywhere. The program, the Wake Up Conversation, Overt Radio Breakfast Show continues after this break. Don't go anywhere. 9:15, I'll be back. This is Ken.